everyone, welcome to Zero Fucks Given. I'm Krista DeLuca, joined by Carson Block, founder of Muddy Waters Capital, and his business partner, Freddy Brick. And today we have a very special guest, the founder of Citron Research, Andrew Left. Andrew, how are you today?
Nice to see everyone. Hi.
Hi.
I can't see you, Drew, because your teleprompter was up. Guys, okay. All right, good. Yeah, now that Krista's teleprompter text is removed. Cool. So, Andrew, great to have you on. I know you have a lot to talk about with us. You know, we share some similar perspectives on the world, I'm sure. But I think first thing that was really, like burning in your mind last week when we caught up was Kanye.
Well, I just thought it was interesting because, so first of all, I'm Jewish. And I don't think Kanye West deep down is an anti-Semite. He just likes to stir the pot. And he just stirred the pot a little bit too much this time. And what's sad is I think we're actually, as society, I think we're trying to push this guy to the edge. And in our amusement, it's almost like theater of the absurd. And I hate to say I might be the only Jew who feels bad for Kanye, but I actually do. Somebody should just, if you see a guy having a little bit of a breakdown, back off a little bit. And, I don't think, now what is bad, what he's doing, I think it's terrible, is I don't think blacks and Jews knew they were supposed to dislike one another. Jews were big proponents of the civil rights movement. And for people who are uninformed, who might say, wait, you mean we don't like Jewish people now? Or, there's a riff here, and that's not cool. But besides that, if he's, Carson, we know. People love to knock people at their knees, okay? We live in a gotcha society, and we're just having fun with this guy. And it's unfortunate.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, if for people offended by him, really the worst thing you can do is continue to talk about him. And if you're offended by him, just more or less just kind of kill that and stop making it such a huge social media thing, because that's exactly
what he's crazy. A week before the
I'm going to take
Freddy.
I'm going to take the other side of this, Andrew, as a Jew. I think that
wait, are you taking the other side of Judaism? Is that what you meant?
I don't know how much Andrew practices, okay? So, but as a practicing Jew, I'm going to take the other side of it. I think the issue with giving it a pass is that this is a guy with a big platform, and if you don't come down on any form of racism, whether it's anti-Semitism or any color or creed that is being heavily criticized by someone who's highly influential, I think it creates an environment where people say, okay, well, that's okay for them to say. Maybe there's a safe space here for me to spout out whatever I want. And I think if you iterate that out further, it does lead to violence. However, while I respect everyone else for dropping him, I think Adidas should have stuck by him, because Adidas are actually a bunch of fucking Nazis, okay? If you look at the history of the brothers, one of them was not one of the we didn't really know what was going on Germans. He was one of those oh, look at that shit over there. I better see if I can get membership to that club. That's really cool. So I have a much bigger issue with all of these German companies, and there's a pretty good book written by a Dutch guy about the Nazi billionaires, and it talks about the Quants and the Peaches and all these guys who are trying to kind of whitewash what went on in the 30s and be like, yeah, look, a few of our factories did a little bit of this and that. And it turns out a lot of these guys were pretty serious card-carrying Nazis. So I think Adidas should have just owned it, been we were always Nazis, we love this guy's anti-Semitism, it fits rightly with our core values as a German company, and we're just gonna fucking own it, and we're gonna hardcore pivot on the anti-Semitism angle, because that's what we are at our core, as opposed to being shit, we really don't want to do this because it's about $250 million a year in P&L. Okay, fine, after 3 weeks we've decided this is a bad idea.
Freddy, you know better than that. None of us should be judged by our ancestors. Okay, we can't use presentism for any of this. Which means I agree that's true about the history of Adidas, 100%. But I can't look at present management and call them Nazis because of it. Okay, it's just an unfair. It's not an honest thing. But I see what you're saying.
So I don't know. I mean, It's kind of funny, hearing that comment, because as Freddie's talking, I'm thinking to myself I'm remembering how every now and then when somebody talks to me about Germany and Wirecard, or Germany and Stroher, the company we shorted, Germany and short sellers, I've said to them, like, look, man, this is the country that started two world wars.
If I was you and I was in Germany, I would play the Jew card so hard. You have no idea. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would swear that's the only way. Like in the U.S., being a white Jewish male short seller, I'm like public enemy number one. If it was Germany and I was right and I short sold the company, oh my God, you would hear it. I would go so beyond. I would show the pictures of my ancestors who perished. I would go out there. We'd be doing documentaries at Dachau and Bergen-Belsen. I mean, it would be off the charts. They would not let me get away with that. I mean, that was a path that I had to do the Germany thing. So I got that. But at the same time, I mean, it's tough. It's a black mark on their history. They know it. Not to go all Holocaust on this conversation. But, obviously I actually went last week. I took my daughter to go see colleges. We're in D.C. We went to the Holocaust Museum. And my kids were amazed how present this was. When I explained to them that their grandmother was alive in the U.S., albeit during the time this happened, it's not like everything else you see in a museum. It seems to be 100 years old, 200 years old. And when they saw the atrocities and they realized, no, like this was alive, this happened during your grandparents' lifetime, it was pretty astounding to them. All that being said, as for Kanye, as for the way we bring people up, as for Adidas had to drop him. As soon as they open his mouth, Adidas knows that's their third rail. Kanye says anti-Semitic, like, oh God, here he goes. It's like the last thing we can say. They knew they couldn't stand by him right there. And obviously there was an issue beforehand.
They took a week.
Should they launch a Mel Gibson shoe? That's the question. Because Mel's back. I mean, they don't let him do anything good now, but he's back.
Yeah, but Mel.
So is this an opening for Mel?
Like
that's the question. Like the Passion of the Christ sneaker or something.
Well, I mean, what role would you I still most associate him with Lethal Weapon. Like what was it, Riggs? Right, that was the last name of his character.
Bird on a Wire. You probably didn't watch.
Sadly, I watched that What Women Want, where he like has the accident with the hairdryer, and then he can hear what women are thinking about him. Yeah.
Well.
All right. So Andrew, I know you really have a lot that much more substantive to talk about. Let's get into it, man.
Was that it? The Kanye thing? That's it?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's funny. Let's talk about some things that never gets talked about that I'll talk about with you, Carson, the irony. So I'll share some crazy stories. Like the whole of short selling, how everything's changed. Okay, we can't hide the fact that we're both known as short sellers. So I'll tell you a story that never gets told, really. What are we now? I was getting divorced in 2006. So 2007, I had a short, this company, Home Solutions, and I was like all in. I was all in. This company was going to go down to zero, or I was going to have to move in with my parents. It was as simple as that. And to think about at the time, I was able to borrow the stock at no borrow fees. There was no such thing as short squeeze. It was a fraud. And I watched the stock went from like 9 to 0. No, it went to like maybe 12 to 0 over 12 months. And as it did, it was a complete zero. But there's no Twitter, so nobody could gang up and do more work. I was the only one who actually, by doing the work, had the information. No one was gaming the market. There was no negative interest, borrow fees, any of that. It's just so crazy how much everything has changed, I guess I don't know, for the better, for the worse, market functions, whatever it is. It's just wild. You can never be all in right now on anything like that,
Right. Well, it's also interesting when you're talking about how there was no Twitter, because looking back, there's kind of the sweet spot. So back around when I started in this business, 2010, 2011, I talked about, and this was really what somebody else had pointed out to me. So this wasn't my original thought here, but I believe very much this idea that the internet democratized investment ideas and research. So you came about because of this democratization. Prior to the internet and the ability to send email, you couldn't, none of us could have competed with the prevailing sell-side investment bank voices that talked about stocks. But in retrospect, there was maybe this sweet spot where email was great, right, for short activists. But then once you got Twitter, I mean, we use Twitter to disseminate our information quite a bit, but yeah, it's definitely
Before there was
created
Twitter, it
a
all
different
started, there was
dynamic.
Raging Bull, which was owned by Lycos, if people remember that company. And then after Raging Bull was the Yahoo message boards, which were huge. And then the Yahoo message boards, when Twitter came around, it kind of ended the Yahoo message board. Yahoo owned finance for a while. It was really weird how they just let that go. The Yahoo message boards were huge. And then it went to Twitter. But that's before, I mean, there was so much. Yahoo message boards, there wasn't like bots or people telling you how to trade and make money. It's just people exchanging information. Raging Bull was pretty much all management. It's before when CEOs couldn't believe you could have a forum to talk about their company. It would drive them nuts. There was always the guy on Raging Bull who knew a little too much about the company. It was like the IR, the management. Invariably, you can never, like a CEO couldn't deal with the fact, like, wait, these people can talk about my company? How is this happening? It would freak them out. You would always catch the CEO. Even on big companies, everyone did it. It's the first time it happened. And I don't know what happened to Raging Bull. And, they tried to moderate it and everything else. But when I wrote my first report 23 years ago, I don't even know how long ago. I'll never forget. I just put it up on Raging Bull. Said, is anyone going to see this? Let's see. And that's how it happened.
Yeah. No, it's kind of funny about the Yahoo message boards. I remember shortly after we shorted that total fraud from China, NQ Mobile, in late 2013, somebody told me they had a friend who had gone and visited the, quote, co-CEO, Omar Khan, who was based in Dallas, visited him in Dallas one day in his office, and just he had like Yahoo message boards up there and kept like checking them during the meeting. So it was... That was definitely.
You can imagine. Can you imagine like if there was a message board
CEOs.
on you directly, like the Carson message board? How much would it just drive you crazy? So these CEOs now they kind of. I still think the question is, what percentage of CEOs you think put their own stock into Twitter and read all the tweet information on it? I would say, not like the Fortune 500, but aside from that, 70%, 80%.
That high?
I would think so.
I mean, you've had like random CEOs add you sometimes, right?
That's true. I have.
That's
Yeah.
that's kind of like its own little rabbit hole, right?
Yeah,
Because
that's sort of like,
I'm not
ooh.
sure it's because they love short sellers. That's my key assumption there.
Right. Well, then one of the big HFT CEOs added me also. That was a little.
Yeah.
Okay. That's weird. Listen, man. One of the things that I really wanted to talk about with you, we all did. I think you'll understand where I'm going with this. You once had a guy who worked for you who got a chin implant.
Oh, yeah.
And a fake chin.
No.
Like, we got to talk about
Is
it.
that real story?
A chin implant. You mean a
You
First,
told me a chin implant.
You had a guy
You
who-
told me a chin implant. I
Yeah.
looked them up. I was.
Yeah,
Now wait, before we get into this, all right? There are people in the short selling community we know well who told us that that is a perfectly acceptable implant to get.
Oh, that's true.
And that if you were going to get any implant, he
A
would
chin
get that.
implant.
And I'm not going to mention that it was Soren Andol because that would be a betrayal. So he thought it was a totally legit thing to get a chin implant. We think it's very fucking weird.
Yeah. So,
what, to get a chin implant?
I think.
Yeah. There's a guy who once worked
Yeah.
for you who got like a fake chin, right?
Where is that
first
guy
of all,
now?
it wasn't a fake chin. He had jaw surgery, a complete jaw.
Nice going.
What's the difference? Wait, did
That's
he-
big.
No, you told me this was a fake
But
chin.
I'll give you one better. I'll say it right here. I had a chin
Wait,
implant.
Wait,
There
no
you go.
way! What was
Well,
wrong
if you
with
go,
your
you
chin?
ready? Google Andrew Left and go look at a photo from me. Pre-Valiant, I think I get it then. I don't know the year. I could see it myself.
This is even
Yeah,
better.
I could see it.
This is the best
This is-
Go
investigative
look, you ready? Go look
journalism.
at photos from me from
Like-
CNBC from like 8 years ago, and then go look at it like 5 years ago, and you'll see it. You'll be like, oh shit, yeah, I see it.
So.
Okay.
So
You
was
start
Soren,
first, and we'll just-
was Soren?
No,
in
but it
on
wasn't
this? Is
Soren.
that why
By the
he
way,
said
Soren,
that to
this
us?
is the first time I even mentioned I had a chin implant. Just because, whatever. But the one you're talking about is the one we both know had a complete like face reconstruction, and he looks great now. So, yeah.
Oh, for cosmetic like not because he wasn't in a car accident, right? He
for
just thought it'd
cosmetic
help
reasons.
him get laid.
Yeah.
Right, he just thought it'd help him get laid. So you told me that after he, the way I remember this years ago, you said he got a fake chin or something, but that like months later he was like, oh, I don't think this was worth it. I still don't have my sense of taste back, and my mouth is still numb.
Yeah, well, he, I mean, for
real?
people who know me or you do, all that they know who we're talking about, he's a great person. He decided to go ahead and just wanted to look better and maybe, get a jaw done.
I'm all for it.
And he looks better. And now, by the way, he also now has blonde hair. Like peroxide blonde hair, along with the chin. And, now he's handsome and rich and charming. So
You did?
Dude, I gotta say, I don't think there was anything wrong with
you can see it. I know
your
it. I mean,
pre-implant
know.
chin.
When I see it, trust me, I look at pictures immediately. I'm like, oh shit, pre-chin, post-chin. You know it immediately.
I mean, if anything, like if I were a chick and I found out it was post-Valiant and I just kind of thought about the market cap and how much you could get in put options, I wouldn't even care if you had a head, to be really honest. I think that would probably do it for most chicks.
Yeah, it does.
It does, not even LA.
You know what it was?
You
know what it was?
one right here.
I went with my wife to her plastic surgeon. My wife was doing normal women's stuff, I guess. And I just took her to the doctor and I said, Doc, what's up? Like, what do you got for me? While I'm there, while we're here, what's up? And any doctor, it's like, when you're asking a hammer what to do with a nail, right? So the doctor looked at me and goes, you have a weak chin. I'm like, fuck, I never really thought about that. Fuck me. Now it's going to be in my mind whenever I look in the mirror, right? So he said that to me. I'm like, okay. And then I looked. I'm like, all right, doctor, let's go. So it was the easy procedure. For anyone who's ever had it done, it's a very easy procedure.
Well, I actually had to have rhinoplasty.
You mean a nose
I had to
job?
have my nose done. And
I knew it was going to go back to you. I swear to God.
You mean a nose job?
I swear to God.
Well, because my orbital bone got caved in playing basketball.
God.
But I have
Where's
to say
the
this,
violin?
like, I've had a bunch of surgeries from various things, like knee, hand, shoulder, and the
Penis
nose.
surgery.
Hand surgery, like how much were you shuffling it that you strained ligaments in your hand?
Listen, man, your bones don't fully thicken until later adolescence, not early adolescence. But yeah, the least pleasant one out of all that, I'd say the recovery was actually the nose one. That was the one that was the shittiest to recover from.
I had a nose one and it wasn't that shitty.
Yeah, because you have to keep those tubes up your nose for like 2 or 3 weeks. It fucking sucks.
Boo fucking who?
Listen, you were maybe used to stretching your mouth out for extra big gulps of air at that time, but I wasn't.
I don't even know what that means.
Anyways, I'm just glad that we've moved off Holocaust and onto more joyous topics, which is always nice with us short sellers.
I'm a bigger short seller. Like the worst fucking job we could ever thought about. I mean, can you imagine? Like, it's the stupidest thing. I'm so fortunate. Like, I can't complain. I have a nice life and I don't got a bunch of shit. And the fact that I got this big a short sale, I mean, literally against the market, the government, the people. I'm like, wow, I could have just bought momentum stocks for 15 fucking years. You understand? And made $1 billion and like no problem, like donated museums. It's the stupidest thing in the world. I literally found the most difficult way in the world to make a living. So stupid.
So I have a question on that because we were chatting the other day and I was like, man, if only you'd have kept on with the self-storage thing, forgotten that like the numbers being real, you could have IPO'd the thing, sold like, $50 million of stock. You might have actually been way richer and then plowed it into the market.
I mean, how much do you fucking hate real estate people? I mean, honestly, let's be honest here. Like, how many you meet this guy's like rich and like his dad, like, hey, what do you do? Oh, my family's been buying commercial units or fuck you. I fucking hate real estate people. You just buy, patient, wait, give it to your kid, just be rich forever. You fucking entitled prick.
Oh,
I hate that.
And the tax
Go out
treatment?
there, get your hands dirty.
Like,
All
do
right.
you guys? Oh yeah, because the
Oh,
taxes.
they don't pay
And they're like,
taxes. They
what
don't feel
taxes?
pain.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have
Exactly.
And nothing's worse. They own real estate.
What do you mean?
And you always get the same answer. Oh, I don't care because I'm not a seller. Yeah, because you're so fucking rich you don't have to sell. Because your grandpa had it, your dad had it. I hate those people. And there's so many of them. Fuck. So I had to move out of LA. In LA, everyone's just rich from just being alive. I'm alive. My dad's alive. My grandpa was alive. We're just rich. Fuck you. I hate real estate people.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get any of that in Miami, I'm sure.
You just give people. I like people. Get your hands dirty somehow. I don't know. Just that generational real estate bullshit. I just can't stand it.
So what would you have been, do you think, if you hadn't have been a short seller?
That's a good question.
A rabbi. I wanted to be a rabbi for years, Freddy. I swear to God, believe it or not. Not to go back to Kanye, but I was going to be a rabbi when I was in high school. Who knew? I mean, I don't want to be a short seller. People don't even realize. So as you know, from this, I knew all these guys used to work at Stratton Oakmont and all that. People ask how I got started. And the truth was, I met a guy. So I used to do their IPOs. I was like an IPO whore, they called me. And, you get 20,000 shares. It'd go up $2. You make 40 grand. I was like 23 years old. That's all good, 24. And then I finally met a guy and he said to me, hey, instead of doing the IPO, why don't you just short those stocks? They're all junk anyways. And I'm like, and that's how I did it. What's crazy. and you know what? And I'll tell you who didn't even realize himself. So now I know Jordan Belfort. I actually saw him like 8 months ago. He came over to interview me, some stupid book he's writing, whatever. If literally the Jordan Belfort Stratton Oakmont thing happened 9 months later, 9 months, he would have made $1 billion and never got in trouble. Because that whole thing, so when you saw that story, The Wolf of Wall Street and all that shit, that's around 1996, 95, 96. The dot-com boom starts 1998. 1998, you could bring out dogmeat.com. They could have brought out, and it would have gone from 10 to 70, no support, without any of the manipulation involved. They would have made a gajillion dollars. They would have done every shit internet company without ever getting in trouble. They missed, all those schlock firms missed the internet boom by 12 months at most. Crazy.
That's interesting. My father was at M.H. Meyerson.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, they had shit IPOs, but yeah, I did those.
Yeah, but I don't think any of them were.
They weren't. They missed it, Carson.
One or two.
You understand something? They missed the internet. All these companies went out in 97. Okay, 95, 96, 97, and the Business Week had an article called "The Mob on Wall Street," which pretty much put an end to all of these. It was like 96 it could have been. And by the end of 97, all these companies were out. In the beginning of 98 or the end of 97, literally 6 months later, when M.H. Meyerson, every internet stock. So they would have done all internet stocks.
But what's actually really funny though, and they totally missed the forest through the trees, is so they didn't do a lot of internet company IPOs, but they launched emeyerson.com.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So, and I think they did sell to somebody. I don't think it was post the bubble bursting. So I don't think they got a huge amount of money for it. But yeah, they sort of jumped on that bandwagon.
I see a bit of an opening here.
Especially hearing Andrew go, alongside this business model that we've been thinking about recently.
Okay.
And I see a need for a charismatic face. I mean, he mentioned he almost became a rabbi, so just a slight tweak on that.
Yeah. Okay. So we agree that short selling is just in many ways a shit business. And so we were sitting around this past weekend, once again trying to think of what we should do when we grow up, and we realized that we should launch a business selling a particular type of insurance, and that insurance policy is to insure. Well, it's rapture insurance. It's insurance to...
But I think we've got to talk about the book as well to give it some context.
Okay. So a friend of mine who's not...
Really a friend.
Oh, he likes you. I took him aside. We had a chat. He really likes him.
Okay.
He's not a terribly devout Christian, has parents who are. And they purchased a book written by a pastor...
Probably a pedophile.
in Amarillo, And the book is a guide for heathens who will be left behind when the rapture occurs, and is for how to survive the tribulation. So we were thinking about that, and it's very generous for somebody in Amarillo to provide that foresight and advice. So I'm sure he understands a lot about the world. And anyway, but then we thought, well, what else could you give a loved one who is going to be left behind in the rapture? And maybe really what you want most of all right now, this moment, is peace of mind, knowing that you've provided for your loved one after you get taken up and they're stuck here, hell on earth. So what do you think, man? You want in?
Not my thing. I am looking for life after this, though. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to say, when this is done, I mean, we could have a market that does. I mean, if you listen to Druckenmiller, it's probably one of the smarter macro guys out there. We're just going to do nothing for the next 7 years, right? Well, I know we could do a stock picker's market, but I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with my time? I mean, how many of my time? I mean, I can't. If I take my kid to school every day, I'm going to fucking kill myself. So. That's what go hell, have people left behind. Where I go, it is what it is. I don't think about it that deep. I do think about what the hell I'm going to do though.
He's not that deep. That's what he's saying.
So you're out, okay? Because
he's
you're
out.
collecting
He's out.
premium in the afterlife, okay?
Yeah.
He's out. It's not his thing.
Not my thing.
It's okay. It's not his
Okay,
thing.
I mean, listen, it's not just payable in U.S. dollars. It's not a scam like that. Obviously, USD would be useless after the rapture. It's payable in cans of tuna and other highly fungible items like that. So, I mean, don't,
I don't know. If
I
I
hope
did
that's
it,
not
get
your final
regulated
answer.
today anyways. To see what cracked down and say I was selling fucking death insurance, and next thing you know, whatever. So, I can't get that shit.
This did come up, and the answer is we sell the token for it, or the
Sure,
cryptocurrency for it, for the insurance policy.
Cryptocurrency, yeah.
Then we can probably mostly stave that off, especially since the rapture is apparently pretty close. That's what I understand. We're in end of days now.
And why not? Everybody sells everything these days, so why not?
Exactly.
So what are you going to do with your time
That's a
then?
good
'Cause it sounds
question.
like...
Well, you're
Yeah.
back. You're back.
What are you?
You're back to shorting.
Whoa.
Yes.
Let's not give him a pass for that. He quit shorting at historically the best time in the history of Earth
Oh, thank you, Freddy.
ever
I appreciate it.
to leave short
I
selling.
appreciate that. What do you mean? If it wasn't for me, saying I quit shorting, the market would have never turned. I mean, everyone show me. It's just like a lot of money to be on this one.
No, all jokes aside, that was a particularly miserable and dark period. Like how genuinely.
So listen, here's what people don't know.
Do you
But
look
don't
back
forget.
on
So
that?
here's what now everyone knows that you didn't know at the time. I swear to God, and this is the first time I'm saying this. On the morning that I made a video saying I'm stopped short selling because the whole GameStop nonsense was the morning the FBI went into my house. Okay? I swear to you, I made that video from Florida. When I finished making the video, I pressed stop. I put it on. 15 minutes later, I get a phone call from a friend who was staying at my house in LA saying, hey, you just had some visitors. Okay? How crazy is that? Had no idea. So talk about validating my decision I just made anyways, right? And I keep thinking, I'm like, wow, you think the government would actually realize it? I'm like, nah, they would actually see because if they actually went, they would see the time they entered and time it was made. You'd realize no, you know what I'm saying? But those two circumstances happened within 15 minutes of one another. So it's just wild. But it gets to a point for me at the time, Freddie, and I knew that, but I have a wife and I got a bunch of kids and shit, and I'm fine, and the business has been good to me. So at some point, I don't have as much fire in me as I used to. I just looked at the family. I said, "Oh no, relax. Okay, your dad won't stop fighting." I fought Hong Kong for years. I fought so many lawsuits for years, and then this happened, and then the Fed happened, and then everyone's like, "Dad, aren't you tired of this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am a little bit tired of this, So, and it didn't mean. And by the way, I shouldn't have because I still I still shorted in my accounts, right? I just wasn't as vocal about it. And I don't like, Freddie, to be honest with you, I just don't like the way the world is right now. Even if everyone gets trolled, and it's one thing you were trolling me, they were trolling my kids. When they started to troll my kids, I'm like, oh, God. And then my wife and everything. I'm like, what's the end goal? If this is where the world's going, you win. Are you happy? You fucking win. You push me out. Now, in reality, I see a lot of guys have done great work on the short selling side. For some reason, I became some enemy, which is fine. You remember it was the GameStop thing, or like I said, because I'm a white Jewish male, I'm an easy target enemy. Would have been the same. Well, I'll tell you what I should have done. I should have found someone who's I should have been if I was a green transvestite or whatever else, and said I was the short seller, everything would have been a lot easier. Nobody could get mad at me, right? But I was like,
was that your Halloween costume?
For some reason, I'm the perfect enemy, and I got it. Joke's on me. Ha, ha, ha. Fuck you. Big deal. Let's go, right? That's it. And that was it. So, yeah, I agree with you, Freddie. It was the worst time. It was shooting fish in a barrel. But, but if you knew, it was. But for a while, I was short these fucking names. If you look at a company like an Upstart. I don't know if you ever short Upstart, Carson. I have no problem saying it right now. Stock was 25. The IPO at 25. Stock's a fucking joke. A short stock at 150. Stock was 380 in 2 weeks or 2 months. You got to have a huge balance sheet. I'm not Citadel. I mean, to stay short those names, you have to be the most perfect short allocator, which is impossible for any of us. Or you have to have a balance sheet that a $10 billion hedge fund or bigger does. Then that's fine. You could otherwise. Fucking Peloton. I was short Peloton, the biggest fucking joke of all time. Stock went to $160 Peloton. 160. When you're shorting at 80, you're like, oh God, I have no problem here. 120, 140. At what point you said mercy? So yeah, you make some money on the way down, but it wasn't, even though it was easy, you have to keep all of that in perspective on all these names. They ran over you.
Yeah, no, it sucks. It sucks. And ever since '08, there just aren't asymmetric type structures that really allow you to do what made '08 so lucrative for short sellers. I mean, I'm not sure that it's been a particularly lucrative year, even this year, for short sellers.
Well, actually, yeah, wanted to get your thoughts on this. From our perspective, a lot of the shitcos are not doing that badly in the market. It certainly seems like it's much more about the large caps, the S&P 500 names taking shits this year than it is, the smaller ones. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of seeing it the way we're seing it. What are your thoughts?
Listen, it's been obviously, it's easy to look at stocks that have gone down now, and if you could time them properly, say, okay, look, we timed it properly. It's a tougher game because the market's been totally gamified. I understand that. You can't find one stock, completely lay into it, and it's going to go down. Who knows what happens tomorrow, right? And I know what you're saying, some of the shitcos. It hasn't been as easy as it should have been this year, no. And don't forget, and also, especially if you're long stocks, because you're assuming the fact that you have a book that you own some things that you're down in as well, right? So you want to make money. If your shorts are going to be down 50%, you hope your longs are only down 10, 15%. And if you're not long anything, you're just short. Well, I hope you're just in business this year, because if you were in business any year before this, you didn't have a business. So, I hate, Carson, there's nothing worse when people say to me, oh, you must be loving this year. You're a short seller. You have to be killing it. I'm like, yeah. What about the past fucking 20 years? You haven't said a word to me, What do you think? I just woke up this year? People, nonsense, fucking losers, With the simple-minded people when you see them. You know what I'm saying? When you walk into, people know a short seller, they walk into a restaurant oh, you must love this market. Oh, yeah. I called the fat. I said, here, why don't you raise me half a point so I can go short? Fucking morons.
So, yeah, but speaking of that, I mean, you were saying right before we started recording that you get recognized every now and then. And then you got
I have no idea how.
The other
and I've done something I did the Netflix thing lately, or it's that chin. I think
Of course, it's the chin.
There you go. If you took it out, nobody would know you. You could just sink back into anonymity.
So
why are you getting recognized?
Do you have a silicone chin?
I don't know what they put it. It's a little fucking packet. Imagine I think it's like this. I think it's from what I know, imagine a thing of, what is it, dip? What's the shit people put in their mouth like that? So imagine that it's a thing.
Yeah,
put it in
the dip.
That makes me look like Cary Grant, right?
The dip?
Okay.
So I mean,
Fuck it, I gotta go deeper on the chin.
But what about? Hang on. I mean, are you aware of all the product liability lawsuits filed because
I'm
of
waiting
those
for you to
things that
write
burst?
something, and then I could sue him.
If all of a sudden, like, your chin deforms on this, we're gonna use
There's
it.
not a lot
Like,
of chin.
I think you just need to keep, objects that weigh like 100 pounds or more off your face.
You know, it's funny because if you look at all these, I know I just saw a line, which is true. I talked about, imagine how vain I had to be to get a chin implant, and that's before Zoom or anything else. So right now, I'm looking at myself for the past, however long we've been talking. Normally when I get a haircut, I go nuts. I got to look in the mirror for like 20 minutes when I get a haircut. It's amazing that through Zoom now, we're looking at ourselves for an incredible amount of time. You never look at yourself. I don't know, like, I don't know if you feel old, Carson, but like, sometimes I walk past the mirror, and I'm
Actually,
like, who the fuck is that guy? You ever
Chris
do
caught
that?
me looking at myself this morning.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
he was so looking at himself. So I was on the camera, and this guy did something like this. And I'm like, what the
Checking the hair
fuck?
out this morning, and gotta look sharp before I walk into the office, right? There's not a lot going on upstairs. It's important to look good, even if you don't know
For
what's
this
fucking
crew.
going on all the time.
It was unbelievable. I'm like, does he think he's fucking Fabio? Like, I don't even know what was happening. I was so embarrassed for you. But, like, because you guys...
Which Zoom was this?
No. It was the camera.
Just on my reflection.
I was trying to do, and I see Freddy go like... I'm like, is he kidding me?
Her and that major hair vanity.
Well, you both aged since...
Carson, you ever walk? Carson,
Actually, not what my
you ever walk
colleagues
past
might
the
say.
mirror, take a glance at yourself, and just like, oh my god, you forgot you're that old? Like, you look at yourself, or no?
He's pretty young.
Actually, you don't have gray. You don't have much
no,
gray hair either.
believe
You
me,
dye
I-
your hair, Carson?
No.
No.
No,
There's
I'm
a lot.
getting
That was
the
actually
grays.
So
big
we've talked
debate,
about,
yeah.
like, because he was like, should I dye my hair? And I'm like, dude, no.
Yeah, I'm like, 'cause, I hate the fake thing, but I'm like, yeah, but I'm doing like TV,
It
and
didn't hurt Bill
I don't know.
Ackman.
No
It
one
did not
knows
hurt
who
Bill
you
Ackman.
are. Like
I
this
think
guy.
Bill Ackman had that hair when he was in, grade school.
Bill wears it well. He wears it well.
He does.
He does.
But I mean, when did he must have been prematurely gray, right? Like one of the
I heard
Steve
it
Martin
was the
guys.
morning he read Andrew's Valiant report that it just literally went white overnight. I heard that. Pubes as well. That's what
Fuck Bill Ackman.
rumor.
I saw Bill, and by the way, I give the guy a lot of respect. He's got huge. Any one of his business has got balls the size of Bill. It's like, come on, it's a business of guys, people with big balls. That's it, And so I think Valiant happened October or something like that, November, like October. I bumped into Bill in Cabo in December at a party, and my friend's like, "Hey, Bill's here." I'm like, "Wow, that's kind of weird." Okay, and so why not? I had a drink, 2 drinks. I go, "Hey, Bill, how are you?" And he looked at me, and he said, "I think the stock's still like 120." And I was still short, not a lot, some. Maybe it was 110. And he says to me, "Hey, Andrew, I hope you covered that short because the thing's going right back." And I thought, it's a lot of confidence. Unless it'd be like, fuck, I fucked up. I'm going to tell you, it's ironically enough, Value Act, who owned a lot of the stock. I spoke to their PMs there, and they actually went back with me so they could improve their processes, saying, hey, where did we make mistakes? And we walked through together. It was a great, amazing thing, just like to watch it done, to watch the humility in them. You know what I'm saying? Say, hey, we fucked this up. To say, hey,
Yeah.
but
And
Bill
then
was
they
full
go-
on like that.
Well, Andrew, hold on.
Yeah, I know that's interesting what you say about the humility of Value Act.
Because then he was balls deep in Nicola and
No,
thought it would be an
that's
awesome
different.
idea
Right, Jeff
to
Ubben.
defend that.
So you're talking about different people. Jeff left Value Act afterwards, and it's run by, is it Mason Moffitt?
Oh, so it
No,
wasn't
no.
Jeff who came
there
to
was
you and was like,
Jeff
okay.
Mason
He
was the guy who was running Value Act at the time. Jeff left and did his. I
Okay.
agree with you. I saw Jeff on CNBC. By the way, Jeff better hair than Bill Ackman. Wears it incredibly well. He's Bill Ackman with a little attitude. If you see Jeff's hair, a little scruff like that, same kind of gray and salt and pepper hair.
Well, no wonder he's done so well for himself in life.
Yeah. It turns
That's what I
out
need.
that all these analytics and stuff that LPs look at for us, really, if they just went full in on the follicle deep dive,
they would know that that's what counts. I mean, that Greg Coffey, the macro dude who used to work more capital, great fucking hair. You know what? I'm really seeing some correlation here between hair quality and returns.
Did you say correlation?
Well, I don't know if it's hair quality and returns, but I'll bet there's a correlation. AUM.
Yeah.
Hair quality and AUM.
Dude, this is the fucking problem.
That's a tight
Steve Cohen's got
correlation.
shit hair.
You've been the one on CNBC all these years.
Steve Cohen
what?
has shit hair.
Who has?
Renaissance. Jim Simons.
Well, he actually
he's
puts
got
up
shit
numbers,
hair.
though.
Druckenmiller's got shit hair.
Ken Griffin's got
What?
pretty good hair. Ken Griffin's pretty good hair.
Yeah,
There's
he
no
has
correlation.
decent hair.
What about Izzy?
Who?
Good hair? Izzy Englander, good hair?
Dan Loeb's got decent hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah.
You're a quant guy.
Well, but you're also
quant
talking about guys
you got
who put
shit hair. There you go. Quant guys have shit hair.
Actually, it's kind of funny because, yeah, like I became friends with the quant guy several years ago in San Fran, and I think he had good numbers, but he never had that much in AUM. But he had good
Really?
hair.
Shitty hair.
So that's probably yeah, he had good
Question
hair.
is,
Like
if you're a media
know,
guy to
dressed
give
well,
your money
too.
to, you ready? If you were a capital allocator, does his hair make a difference?
No.
Well, consciously,
care if he had a
no.
suntan?
But the question is whether we does he? Well, I think there's. So there was a study that came out a few years ago that showed an inverse correlation between. Well, I don't know. I guess you don't call it inverse correlation, but for managers who drove sports cars, their performance tended to be the worst. And for those over time, and for those who drove minivans, they had the best performance.
And that shows how long ago you read that study because, like, a sports car mattered then. Now, like, every 26-year-old who owns 3 cryptos can have a sports car. It's like whether you have a G6.
Well, I think it's
or
what
whether
you drive, not what you have. What you drive.
Huh. Interesting.
So like I don't know where I am in that with a like a.
You're confused.
Well, yeah, it's like in between a minivan and a
Well, what do you
sports
drive, Carson?
car. I've got a Cayenne
Oh,
Turbo.
you know what? It's funny you say that. I used to have the Cayenne Turbo. Do you have the one with the back? What is it called?
Yeah, the coupe.
You have that
the
car?
Coupe, right?
I had that car
Yeah.
until my daughter told me it's a bit feminine for me. I swear to God, my daughter. By the way, I love that car. I loved it. And when my daughter, who's 18 now, at the time she was like 15, and she called and said, Dad, why do you drive a grocery pusher? I said, what are you talking about? It's a Cayenne Turbo with the coupe back. I thought it was dope. What color is yours? Like I had the
That's
chalk
blue.
one. You know that chalk
It's
color?
blue.
I thought the car was
okay.
nice, right? Fast, everything. And my daughter demasculated me. I'm like, fuck. Okay.
Well, the thing that like I'm not sold on it. I also have a Land Cruiser, but I don't drive that much. But I actually feel like I like the Land Cruiser better. And so before this, I was driving a Panamera Turbo, and that was a lot sportier than the Cayman, or than the Cayenne rather. Like the Cayenne just, I don't know, man. It just doesn't really drive that. It doesn't drive that amazingly. I got to tell you, it's not the Panamera definitely drove more like a sports car.
Yeah. How about you, Freddy? What do you drive?
I own an e-scooter. So allocators, if you're watching, fucking get some of this. That's really high up on the ESG scores. But my wife drives a Range Rover Sport, which, we test drove the even girlier one. What's it called? The Macan. And I gotta say, the Porsches, like the 4x4s, much better drive. I just fucking love the sound the Range Rover Sport has. We got the fully souped up. I actually scuffed the rims this week, which my wife is delighted about because I endlessly rib her. But yeah, it's a great looking car. It kind of drives like shit unless you're going in a straight line fast, in which case it's great.
They're not bad. I mean, I compare it. So my wife has a Range Rover, but the full size, and it's much more nimble than the Land Cruiser. I mean, the steering is much lighter touch.
Yeah, it's like
but
2x the price. I'd want a little.
What does he care? He's a fucking hedge fund manager with a successful track record. She'll drive what the hell she wants to drive. No apologies.
So have you always been
What?
into cars? What's the coolest car you've ever had?
Yeah, your car.
I don't know.
guy,
We say the coolest car I ever have. It's probably right now. I drive a. Well, I don't drive it all the time, but I'm into my 1987 SL convertible Mercedes. You know those? Remember those?
Oh, those are so nice.
They're just
Hot car.
fun cars because it's the last of the. If you like cars, it's still a vintage car. The license plate actually says antique, but it's comfortable. You can drive it. Has the big steering wheel. It's fun. So that's other cars, whatever. I'm not in other
Oh
cars.
yeah, I love
Right now,
those.
it's just no reason to become a victim.
So when I was in high school, like I wanted to get one of those, but have it like have it hot rodded basically, like bore out the engine block, etc. I mean, is yours modified in any way, or
The
it's
only
just
thing that's done
basically
that's not original is the Bluetooth
stock?
inside. The Carson, they're great cars. I mean, honestly, if you have, especially you're in California, so you don't deal with weather, putting the top up and down is a pain in the ass. Remember, because you used to clip it like that.
Yeah.
But they're fun. If you like vintage, I love vintage anything. So it's great. It gives you that vintage feeling, but they're fun to drive.
Right on. Yep. Always wanted one of those. Cool.
See, I'd say I'd buy you one, Carson, but if I said I'd buy you one, next thing you know, people be like, Left buying Carson a car? Why is he buying Carson a car? I don't know.
The FBI will seize
Why
it.
is Left
Yeah,
buying
you can't
Carson
do
a
that.
car? I don't know. It was his fucking birthday. It was his
I knew
birthday.
it.
I thought I'd get him a car. Fuck me.
Actually, you know what I had until about a year ago? I had bought a 2002 Thunderbird convertible. So it's like
That's a good
turquoise.
grandma car. Don't even
I
say
drove
that.
that
Act like I
thing.
never heard that. Keep going.
Oh, it's such a. You're not supposed to say that it's vintage.
2002.
Fuck.
No,
Get me a
2002
fucking
is
car.
vintage.
Get me a
2002
proper
is
fucking
weak,
car then.
Okay, 1962 is vintage. 2002 Thunderbird. It's such a bad car that even Ford, after 3 years, said, "Oh fuck, we can't make this anymore." I think that car only had 3 years at Ford. Ford actually built the car to scrap it after 3 years because no one at Ford wanted to drive the car. Like,
I drove that car from LA to San Francisco.
To San Fran, yeah.
I was so excited
and
about
that one
driving
person
it.
looked at you.
People looked at me, but yeah,
Dude,
I mean, like I was.
It's a hot car, man. I
I don't know. Like I
80.
was so excited about it, and then I was like, "Wait, what kind of music am I going to listen?" Like it had it didn't even have a CD player.
What about a cassette? Did it have a cassette?
It had a cassette, but I was like, "Fuck!" I didn't. Who has any cassettes?
See, it's vintage.
And he's like, "It's vintage. You're gonna love it."
Andrew's car is a cassette player.
It has a cassette player. I don't use it though, but it has a cassette player, no doubt. Maybe Carson, you'll make me a mixtape.
There we go.
Anything else that we should just end
yeah.
with?
All right, so we had some other things written on the board here.
We didn't even go with my beautiful thing here.
Actually, Krista does. She feels like she has something really important to add on.
I
this.
don't actually. It was
just
Kanye West hires a former FBI agent.
Hold
I
on,
sent
who
it to
cares?
Andrew
You didn't
to
tell us
get
what
his-
you drive. What do you drive?
I don't want to say.
This is a subject of discussion.
She gets co-rolled frequently.
What do you
Do
drive?
I?
Yes.
It's a stupid shit car, according to Carson.
No, I call it a phone booth
What is
on
it?
wheels. I don't call
But
it a
it's
stupid
not,
chick car
though.
because that would be sexist, and I'm not going to be sexist.
You are though.
Go
What
for
is
it,
it?
Krista. By the way, I think it's an okay car.
It's fine. It just doesn't work with the modern world. And we live in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
pretty
So,
well in
okay,
Texas
well,
now,
I was in
where everybody's
California.
got pickup truck that's twice as tall as I am. And
It's
so
a Mini
she-
Cooper.
She
and
drives
so-
a Mini Cooper.
But when I was in California, when I moved from New York, I'm like, oh, what do I want? I want
You
a
know
Mini
what? I like
Cooper.
Mini Coopers. They're cute
Carson's
cars.
like,
The only
this is-
problem is that everyone on the road, everybody drives and texts. Like my daughter, I just saw her walk by my house. Say, don't text and drive. She's like, that's all you do. I know, right? So I want to be in a safe car. A Mini Cooper looks like just a clown car.
Yes.
I know the guy back if he's texting and
I know,
driving.
well, I know,
I mean,
that's
everyone's
what
texting and driving. I don't want to be in a Mini Cooper. But they're very
I know.
nice cars.
Yeah, but it's a lot. I gotta tell you though, it's a lot cheaper than like the 3 months severance in a contract and stuff. So it's not the end of the world.
Shut up.
No, but that's exactly what I told her. Is that
What did you say?
No, when you
said this is the fucking gayest car. Everybody's gonna know you're a lesbian. This is so fucking gay.
No,
He's like, you've got to get the fucking rid of this.
I'll tell you what. A lesbian car will do much better in an accident with an F-150 than your piece of shit will. Like like a Forester or an Outback. Like those are good, safe cars.
Those are like
that's what every other lesbian drives.
That is lesbian.
It's got a lot of room in the back for the walking stick. So
keep on going, buddy.
I gotta tell you,
keep on
I've never seen either of those cars in one of their movies, so I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I know. The lesbians I know have no money to even.
Right, the ones I've seen are all
we are gonna,
school teachers
we are gonna,
and nurses.
I know.
Well, there's
no, we've gotta cut this all out because I'm gonna have no friends. I have little friends to begin with.
But your Twitter could blow up.
But my Twitter's going to blow the fuck up.
You're the Twitter.
Yeah.
I am the Twitter.
So what do you make of Elon taking over Twitter? You think he's going to eat shit on like the 25 yards he's put into that?
So
or
crazy.
you think
I'll be
this
honest
is
with
going
you.
to be a real master?
And I really think everyone has their own opinions. I think I think he put that out there. I think Elon did not want to sit in a deposition. And I think he just spent all that money because he didn't want to deal with the legal part of it. You know, maybe he could have paid the breakup fee. His ego is enormous. You know, could he?
Well, that's not how a breakup fee works.
I don't even know. You know what? I'm surprised it went through. Fucking A, God bless this guy. When I say that, I know, Carson, you're not a fan. And I just cannot get over the fact of what he does. Like, how does this full? You know, when you wake up, you go, "Oh, text me," or "Who called me?" Right? Well, you're running SpaceX, Tesla, boring, Twitter, Neuralink, family, 8 kids, 3 wives. I mean, he's gonna wake up and be like, "Fuck me." I mean, how does that work? You know what I'm saying? I have no idea how he does it. And it looks like he tries to float at the same time. You know, he's like here and there. Like, does he have like 3 phones and 5 people who like feed him the information? I mean, how does it go? And to bite off now. It was a lot. I had that reference I made like a month ago. The fact that you add on Twitter now, so it's Twitter, SpaceX, Neuralink, boring, Tesla, life. I mean, and not to mention the pressures of being Elon Musk, right? I mean, imagine every day the amount of interviews or people that have to, you know, whatever it is, government, whatever. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like your head wants to explode. So the fact that he takes that on voluntarily, I don't even know where to go with that. God bless him. Fuck. You know, the crazy part is normally I could legitimately say, and I have respect for the guy, I wouldn't want to trade places with him.
Well, that's because he's like a little bit fatter and whiter.
Yeah, you know, I don't think, I mean, he's doing, I just don't think, but I'll tell you one thing I did read, Carson and Freddy, and not to get like deep and serious and all this shit, and it's so obvious. You know, I get so fucking, anyone who's in the markets, you get so tied to these numbers. You know, what's my high mark? And now I'm here, and I was here. And you were tied to numbers. And we're also fortunate to be alive. And I don't know why. On my Instagram just popped up the other day, some like motivational guy says, "Would you trade places with Warren Buffett?" And I'm like, no, because he's 91. And if you're reading this, exactly, he'll definitely trade places with you. So why is it when we look at life, we so worry about money? So we understand that immediately you say no way. On a macro scale, we all understand that money doesn't mean everything. We know it immediately, that answer. No one even pauses for that answer, goes, let me think about it, right? Everyone's like, no fucking way. But when we live our lives, we spend so much time worrying about that micro. I spend so much time worrying about that number. How do I get that number higher? How do I get that number higher? Instead of doing something that, you know, enjoying life. It's so obvious on a macro, but I can't seem to function on a micro. It's so amazing to think. And no one pauses with that. If you ask anyone, no one pauses.
There's 2 things there.
Right.
There's 2 things you've touched upon that I think are really interesting. One is about wealth, and it doesn't matter who you are, you kind of never feel wealthy unless you're at your top tick. It's a very perverse, weird thing where you have a couple bad months and you're finally like, I'm not super wealthy. You're kind of creaming it and moving away. You feel wealthy. It's a very, very strange thing. Even though like most fund managers aren't going to touch that pile of money that they love to go to the ATM and look at. It's a weird psychological thing. The second thing is how, you're right, capitalism condenses everything into units, and then we totally forget the time element on anything. Because like we're all going to be on this earth for like someone actually told me like the number in weeks. If you're a certain amount of age, it's like 1,000 weeks. And I'm like, fuck, like that really sucks. And it's weird because you don't think about it, and you're right. Now, the one caveat there is if you have a lot of money, you can shorten a lot of shitty time spent. Like, you have a lot of money, you can have, I don't know, your house clean, your car cleaned, all the shitty time you don't want to spend on things you don't want to do. Like, that helps. But once you get beyond a certain point, it totally just makes you not think about how you're spending your time and, like, focused on a stupid fucking number.
About this job.
You're never actually going to
anyone who does this for a living, I wish, when you have a business, you build your business, your storage facilities. Let's say you build them, you buy more storage, you go to work every day, you employ your people, and then one day private equity comes around, they say, hey, we're going to pay you X amount for storage. You go, fuck me, really? I'm making this much money. It's great. And you got to build it. Being tied to a number, investors, quarterly, annual, it's just such everyday pressure, ups, downs. It really takes more mental strain just to stay level-headed through the whole thing.
Well, look, some of what you're saying I agree with, but the
fucking
something I think I'm very cognizant.
Since we've been talking, the market got shellacked, and getting shellacked more after hours. Okay.
One of the things that I think personally I'm very conscious of and have been for some years is my time and not wasting it. And I already felt this way before I sat down with this one friend, but probably 10 to 12 years ago, a friend of mine was telling me how they'd just gone to see this one friend, same age as I was at the time, so I was mid 30s, and this friend is probably this is gonna be the last time that he gets to see her, and he just said something to me. He's like, see, that's, we don't know how much time we have, but whatever it is, life is too short to spend your time doing things that you don't enjoy doing. And so, I completely agree with that. And yeah, this business has its, it has its moments that suck, like clearly. And, we can talk about how it is a very difficult business, but reality, I do it because I want to do it. I think you did it because you wanted to do it. And it's not the money. I mean, money is part of it, and that's one of the things I really hate when you get that popular criticism of guys like us. It's like, oh, these greedy fucking short sellers, oh, they do it for money. It's like, listen, man, it's like we say, and we know, there are much easier ways we could be making money. So if it were money, we wouldn't be doing this. And like any other job in the world, like there's a pride that you take in it. There's an enjoyment that you derive from it. And yeah, look, if this job were or ever became just about the money for me, then fuck this, I'd be out of here.
Anyone who knows this.
So yeah,
the best part about our business, I don't know if people are watching this. I don't know who's watching it, whatever, but fuck it. The best part about a business is
well, the evangelicals dropped after the rapture insurance thing, so that was like
you can work and kick your ass at the same time. No, is you learn so many. You learn so much that if you go for dinner, like when I go for dinner with those fucking real estate jerk offs I told you I hate, right? They're morons. They know nothing. They're like, well, our cap rate. We've owned this building in Santa Monica for 22 years, and our cap rate. Fuck you. Okay, when you do our business, you learn so much. Right? On a daily basis, your brain just absorbs and you know what's happening in the world in different industries. And it just makes you appreciate the world around you because you know so much more about it versus being so channeled and focused on my buildings that I own, that my grandfather, my father, and now, whatever. And you actually feel.
But I don't know if that makes us happier. Like, that's the thing. I often think that because we sit at dinner. And everyone's like, wow, how do you know all this shit about all these different things? And you're like, well, I read. Okay, and they're like, oh, because we just know fuck all about this little thing. But I don't know if it makes me happier. I think I might be 10 times happier in my grandfather's grandfather.
By the way, the question is, you know what? You're right, Freddy. It seems like knowing it does make you more miserable. Trust me, it does. But making you fulfilled and miserable are two different things. Okay? So the point is, I might be miserable, but I'm very in touch with my misery. And I know.
Which you two are. Very
no, I
much
mean,
so.
look, I always say that I'm not happy unless I'm unhappy.
Of course.
He says that every day, and actually, that's the way he lives his life.
That's, when people, when I get asked, like in interviews, oh, so why do you do this? And it's, and I say personality flaw, but the flaw is, and I suspect this is true for you.
Carson, how about you were on CNBC last week, and some fucking lady says to you, so uses the word death threats. Do you know what I'm talking about? I saw you on TV, and the lady said that to you. I don't know who it was.
Yeah.
And I wanted to jump to the screen and grab her by her neck. First of all, why would you say that? There's no reason to even say that on TV, right? What you could said is people who don't like, troll. You could have said a million different things, especially when you see what happened with Pelosi, right? Yeah. There are a lot of, I always tell people with the weird part of what we do, I said, trust me, I don't think I'm doing God's work or anything, but I look at a John Lennon, and I was a big Beatles fan, and John Lennon's great. And fucking the fact that Mark David Chapman's one whack job just changes the course of history, right? All you need is one crazy. Look with Pelosi. This guy shows up with ties with him and is going to with a hammer, crazy, right? So if there's anything the media should do, it's just not encourage that one person, okay? Assuming those people exist, fine. We understand it's a hazard, right? You might think your stock went down because of me, not because it's a piece of shit stock. Fine, whatever. The last thing I need is the media to encourage that and say that. The fact that CNBC would put that out in the universe, I'm like, what are you doing even saying that?
Well, number one, there's a salacious element to it, so they're going to put that in there. But the reason I didn't mind it, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but it shows that this is not just something you do for money, that this is not this, bowl of cherries, or that we're all sitting here laughing our asses off at every second because we're making money. Like, it's, what I feel like being honest about that, and having had death threats really since day one, I think literally since day one, I think being honest about that is making the point that, this is a hard fucking business, and we're not doing it for the money. There's something, there are other reasons we do it, other reasons we find it fulfilling. That, and just to make it, because I do it for the money. That is this misperception.
I did it for the
What's
money. That? No, but I got it. But I did it for the money still. Fuck it. Listen, like I said to you, if I wanted to do God's work, I would have been a rabbi. But I'm not. I did this strictly for the money, and I found the most difficult way.
You would have done that.
For the most difficult way of making money. I'm looking right now after hours. Roku's $44. I was short Roku at $45. I think it went to $500, $400, some stupid number. It's right back to $45. And the whole time, everything that I thought about this, every stock that's now come back, it's taken 6 fucking years or 7 years. But every thesis that I ever had has completely, I've studied Wayfair so much. Wayfair. Stock went to 300. It's back at 30. Duh. So it would have been great if you would have given me the patience of a saint is okay. The bank book of Ken Griffin, I would have been just fine. But I've neither, so I'm still just fine. But
But the worst part about it is actually, you wait all this time, and I gotta tell you, you really want to be ha. None of you guys were geniuses. You just had balls long the 30-year treasury on, and you confused it with having a fucking brain. And if you want to have any friends left, which we had few to start with, you can't really turn up and be ha, you're financially
Freddie,
ruined.
You know what?
I'm not.
Freddie, you know what's funny right
You can't turn up and be ha, chin implants are hilarious either.
Freddie?
He's still on.
Because you never know how many of them, your friends have them.
So it just sucks.
Freddie, I had that conversation. Is how many times over the years have you heard, oh, that guy's smart. That guy's smart. That guy's smart. And it turns out to be they just had the Fed on their side, and they knew to pull momentum. I'll tell you who I have to give credit to is Kotu.
Yes, only down 20%, which is very impressive.
They sold out. I think
he's done well in America for a Frenchman.
He sold out. I think he sold around November, December. to be able to ride it for all those years and then bail out within months.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's pretty impressive. I actually we poke fun at a lot of that complex of companies, but it genuinely is quite impressive. You know what's not super impressive? The allocators who put money with Chase Coleman in 2021. What is super impressive? Chase fucking Coleman's Gardner's bank account. That dude is probably fuck you rich.
By the way, he's
I don't know,
rich.
man.
You know
I
what?
think the allocators.
I don't know. He's a fucking wasp.
Listen, I think the allocators.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a
It's
that
awesome name.
they should have just handed him the multi-billion-dollar check upon his parents filing the birth name certificate.
Really?
Yeah.
Big, waspy, good.
Well,
just everything about him. He's like the anti-me.
Is he saying he hates wasps?
I'm jealous. I don't
he
know.
is.
Fuck him. God bless him.
But is he old enough to know if it's truly good hair? Because a lot of those other guys are older and they've had some stress to
he
deal
keeps
with.
a very low profile, Chase, and it's that old money in him. God bless him. Whatever. I sat with
Dude, he built the most amazing fucking business.
I'll tell you
ever.
something. And now we're so late in the program that if you're really still watching this, anyone, you deserve to hear this story because I find it one of my tells. Carson, I'll tell you. Back in the days when things mattered, I'd go to a fund. If I was short a stock, I'd find who was long the stock. And this is before there was a whole short seller anger, and I could make meetings with them. And this is and I sat with Tiger Global, and it was on Zillow. And they owned a big piece of it, and I was short Zillow. And they sat with the analyst, first of all, their offices are just spectacular. You go my God, beyond, overlooking the park, freaking rows, and everyone's a valedictorian. Imagine 40 valedictorians sitting at computers overlooking Central Park and an art gallery, and that's their offices, right? All the people 19%, 18%, less than the S&P, whatever. It's almost intimidating. I admit, I get it. I was a little intimidated. So you sit in the office, and then I always have one thing. I lay out my case, I hear their case, and then whenever I did it with the guy who owned the stock, I always said one thing. I said, so, at the end, are we going to agree to disagree, or am I just plain out fucking wrong? If they said to me, we're going to agree to disagree, then I'm right. If they said to me, no, you're just wrong, you don't get it, then there's a good chance I'm wrong. That they know, I don't know, I'm going to go cover. So I'm at Zillow, and this guy who bought it for Chase, he was young. I mean, this kid must be 27 years old, the most arrogant little prick, Wharton, Cho, whatever it is, kid. He was just beyond arrogant. And he knows beyond. I can't even tell you how arrogant he was. He knew nothing. And then I said to him, can we agree to disagree, or am I wrong? He goes, you know what, Andrew? I guess we're just going to agree to disagree on this one. And sure enough, because the stock went up and then everything worked out, stock went lower. I think they sold it at a loss, whatever it was. But fucking Chase Coleman, Tiger, whatever.
Did you say that analyst's name was Joe?
No, Joe ran the short book there. That guy. He was a nice guy.
Right.
I didn't mind it.
No, okay. I think what I respect about it is they hired good people for many years, which is a skill in and of itself. And they created this FOMO that just meant people would throw bucket loads of money and totally overlook that maybe a $10 billion VC fund is going to struggle to put up real numbers. And they just did it with such fucking style and created such an aura around it. Now, it's obviously ended poorly, so I don't really blame them. I mean, I got to tell you, if we're doing this podcast in 12 to 14 years' time, and Carson and I are flying on separate G6s,
Clearly.
and people are being
with room in the cargo hold for the Cayenne.
Exactly. And people are lining up to give us $10 billion, which means you are guaranteed to make $200 million a year for the next 10 years.
The numbers are ungodly.
It's ungodly.
And someone wants to write mean articles about me on Bloomberg, I'll be yeah, I'm fucking winning. big time. And that's what everyone misses.
You know, I respect him. I gotta say,
winners.
Chase, they had a shitty year and everything else like that. But he made a comment. You know, I think Gabe folded shop, whatever. But Chase is like, he wants to make his investors his money back. And as crazy as it sounds, and I don't know the guy at all, it keeps him up at night. I guarantee it. You know, he wants to find a way to make it. It doesn't want 1 year, 2 years, but I guarantee, and without even knowing, and I could be so wrong, I bet you he's probably more engaged now than he's ever been. And he's kicking himself for not being as engaged last year, going, how the fuck did we ever make that investment? And why did we never sell that? And I actually think there's got to be, because you get to a point, there's got to be ego involved. I could be wrong.
Well, do you think he really asks those questions? And the answer is, why did we do this? Because we were just super fucking
no,
loud
but
and
you
beta.
say,
Like,
listen,
for all of our bagging on people who are just long beta or been long beta and made all this money playing momentum stocks or whatever, the reality is nobody here was doing that in a big way. You might have been doing it some, but on the short side, where we all really know that we're so smart, and we look at these people on the other side who we think a lot of them have been, complete morons, but have done so well, they at least got the memo. So I guess,
No, but
does
you know
Chase
what?
really
No.
ask, why did we buy this? You bought it because
I'll disagree with that.
It worked in the paradigm that was in effect at
What
the time.
sucks about the long side, this is why I actually like Stan Druckenmiller. He's just like, yeah, I'm bulls long beta. I don't know, next week I might not be. Like,
he's so good.
understands
You know what it is?
what he's
Carson,
long.
I'm not going to say the person's name, but there's a guy named, it's the size of a Druckenmiller. I sat with him. He was a friend, one of the biggest guys out there. And I couldn't understand about a stock. It was going down. He looked at me and he said, oh, you don't get it. I go, what? And he said, it's just a fucking game. And I was like, oh my God, here I am, like thinking, this company will never earn this much in 2023 or in 2016. What are they thinking about? And the analyst, and I'm like trying to get all academic. And this is the guy the size of Druckenmiller. He just looked at me, he's kind of laughing, like, oh, like no one let you in on this. The whole thing's a game. And he said it to me. I went home and looked at my wife. I'm like, oh my God, fuck. Here I am thinking this is real. It's just a fucking game. And that's the truth. And the game turned. And this is where, now if you're really this late in this fucking watch and you're still watching this, God bless you, you really deserve this. I thought about this like fucking a month ago. Being a short seller, there's one word, Freddy. Everyone wants to know. What's the catalyst? What's the catalyst? What's the catalyst? What's the catalyst? Right? But now, if you own a stock, there's only one question you have to ask if you own a stock. What's the catalyst? Everything by nature is going down. The game has just reversed. Once you got that, once I understood that it's the game and then the game reversed, what's the catalyst? Oh my God, you're going to just treat it the same way buying a shorting. You know what I'm saying? So if you're a PM right now, even if Tiger, and your guy comes to you, your guy's analyst goes, Chase, I think we should be buying this. And what's Chase saying to him? What's the catalyst? But if the guy says, Chase, we should be shorting this. Chase is like, all right, short it. How crazy. Why? Because it's just a fucking game. Duh. And by the way, no one has the balls to go on CNBC, and when they say it, everybody they have on there, and go, oh, so tell me, Scott, what do you think? And people go, oh, Scott, you don't get it. It's just a game. The whole thing's just a game. But it's true because it's always been a game. Because going back to when I first learned about the stock market, if you look at like Market Wizards, the old school when they used to hire people and all that, they hired poker players, game theory people who understood the concept of games. Now somehow we started to believe it's real. And Chase, we also believe. That's how you know the market's getting frothy, when we started to believe the shit was real. Then it goes back like, oh fuck, shit. Then when you go back to, oh shit, it's just a game. Amazing.
That's one of the things when I started doing this business, and at the very beginning, I was still living in China, and that's one of the things I really respected about the Chinese is when it comes to the stock market is, to them, it was always a joke, right? Like it was a game. Yeah. It's just, the certificates swirl around in the ether effectively, no real tether to any fundamental value. And and I contrasted that with, people back here in the States, just they'll have this undying faith in a company and think that should propel the stock. And it just,
It's the same thing with like real business people. Like my dad has a retail business and he'll like look at a retail stock and I'll be like, these two things are separate. Like running a business
and what a stock does. Like, one is based on like whether money will flow in and out of the company and whether you can buy for one or sell for two. And the other is based on some paper swirling around that has nothing to do with anything. It's like, okay, this fund manager's getting outflows, this is happening because of this analyst doesn't like this management. It's just a total work of fiction that swirls around. And yeah, it is just a big game.
But that's one thing I like about resource stocks, right? Like if you have to get into this world where you're buying things that are real, that's as real as it gets in the capital markets.
And if you're an allocator and you're still watching, across the bottom will be... And our GC's going to have a fucking field day because he's got to watch this shit as well.
Maybe we'll just bleep this part out.
Fuck them all. They're all a bunch of fucking haters. They're all a bunch of haters.
They're a bunch of haters, that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Right.
no, it's, yeah, like, well, we started with, like the 2 world wars and Nazis, and we kind of
Right.
come back to it.
We're going to circle back.
Cool.
We've covered a lot, much of which I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, no, this is,
By the way,
this is like no whiteboard. All right, awesome seeing you, man.
guys
Thanks
are
so
great.
much for doing
Thank
this.
you
Thanks,
so much.
Andrew.
Thanks for your time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.